Everybody stop. We are not taking that taxpayer money to your friends who followed directions at the January field trip. Heck no, tech no. We do not encourage our friends to make unsafe choices, then call them patriotic, then let your friends out of their consequences, and then sue ourselves, and then create a $1.76 billion prize box. No, I said 7-6, not 6-7. Just catch a bubble, okay? That's why we don't start coups during rallies, my friend, okay? I know that you do not like consequences, but you're making democracy feel unsafe, and that's a sad choice. Got it. Okay, let's think in our brain. If you are the president suing the government as the boss of the government, is that expected behavior or unexpected? Your Treasury Department lawyer doesn't want to play with you anymore, friend. Why don't you go draw one of your cities with the Sharpies, okay? And I will be right back. On top.
Just remember that those are the people who would have been in charge of the 250th anniversary celebration if Trump hadn't won in 2024. Certainly, when Trump dodged a bullet, we all dodged a bullet that day, didn't we? Good morning. Congratulations to Siggy's mom. She got a promotion this morning. Woohoo! Welcome, everybody. Rise in freedom. Glad and thankful to have you here. Click the like button if you haven't already. We're going to have a great show today. Thankfully, Trump won so we could all have moments like these.
Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
Michelle Obama is a man? What? Excuse me? Everybody's asking me, Austin, what did you think about the UFC fighter who said Michelle Obama is a man? And at first, I kind of rolled my eyes and I was like, when you hear the 999th time you hear a joke, it's not quite as funny. However, I did some thinking about it last night. Stephanie, my wife, she asked me, what did you think about that UFC fighter who said Michelle Obama is a man? I started to rethink it last night. And you know what? It's not funny to me just because, again, I've heard it a million times. But I want to defend the attempt to be funny. Because if I have to live in a world governed by people who say, catch a bubble in your mouth, or UFC fighters who say, Michelle Obama's a man, I'll take the UFC fighter in a heartbeat. I want to live in a dangerous world where men could be men, where the locker rooms are safe from female prying eyes, where we're not constantly being lectured to. So yeah, I want to live in a society where people are free to make those kinds of jokes. It may be a dumb joke, it may be an off-taste joke, maybe off-color joke, but you know what? I want to defend the attempt to say it, because if he had said something like that 10 years ago or whenever, or back in the old days of Mitt Romney and John McCain, there would have been a commission, there would have been a hearing, there would have been millions of taxpayer dollars spent investigating this. The United States would essentially become what the United Kingdom is now. And we're going to talk about what's happening in the UK this morning. So good morning, Eric Wilson Live, Matt Unruh, Byron Norris, Team Mill22, Quest Fanning, and all of our friends. Glad and thankful to have you here. So the undisputed lightweight champion of the world stood in a smear of another man's blood on the grass behind the White House. Justin Gaethje peeled himself off the brink of defeat to beat the two-division champion Ilia Topuria into raw hamburger on the birthday of the United States Army under a steel structure nicknamed the Claw. Ooh, the Claw. Justin Gaethje had one of the most epic walkouts of all time, going from the Oval Office out to the Octagon, and won an incredible battle for his people. 7 fights and 7 finishes went out to the country without a pay-per-view fee on Paramount Plus, while 1,000 American soldiers cheered in work boots on the same Capitol grounds where Thomas Jefferson once greeted plain citizens off the street. The Marine Band played the combatants to the cage, and fighter jets were roaring over the National Mall to mark Flag Day and the start of the American 250th anniversary celebration. So half of Washington, of course, immediately declared the entire spectacle an absolute catastrophe. because legislators and Senate candidates, they loathe this populist impulse of an open fence line where normal people could possibly walk these hallowed grounds of their state religion. Variety magazine accused this spectacle of peak idiocracy, and activists were trying to sue the match out of existence before a federal judge because intellectual elites possess an obsession with superior taste and require that the president's residence remain a cold, forbidding cathedral for the administrative priesthood. Detached observers choose the solemnity as a weapon against us because an open gate for normal people terrifies the clerisy that survives by keeping genuine constituents outside the property. At the exact same moment, there was a German tourist named Freddie who was driving across the open roads of Alabama, and he left Walmart leaving slack-jawed. He's posting on X to the planet that he loves Americans because he found a civil miracle in our traditions. But the managerial insiders, they're mourning that there's a rose bush, a left hook, right? But recognize that there is this kind of dark convergence of this managerial aristocracy across the Atlantic Ocean, where the British Labour government just erected a mandatory checkpoint between its citizens and social media. So the Keir Starmer regime, they codified coercion by announcing a total ban on social media for every child under 16 that's going to be policed by central audit directors at Ofcom. So to verify the adolescent repressive apparatus, it demands this digital classification system for every adult in the empire, squashing the sovereignty of the family and the parents who are supposed to be making the decisions about which kids can access social media, right? The authority, it expands from petty school disputes in Borehamwood, where police raided a family living room to arrest parents in front of a 3-year-old because of a private WhatsApp complaint, and then all the way over to armed enforcement squads that are intercepting Irish comedians at terminal gates at the airport over words that they said on the internet. So this repressive asymmetry assigns 31 months in a carceral cell to a conservative just because they made an angry post during an urban riot, while the left-wing counselors who are executing, these are people who are doing throat-slitting gestures on camera. No problem. They're acquitted. That doesn't mean we're going to kill you. This doesn't mean we're going to kill you, but if you make a joke on the internet, you're going to jail. So the Cold War East Germans recognized this erosion of their rights as what they called Zersetzung, which is the strategic psychological decomposition of the soul that's produced when ordinary men have to swallow their laughter and concede that expression requires a permit from the local constables. So what I'm saying here in some very fancy words, essentially, is that I defend the right of that man to make the Michelle Obama is a man joke. Because in the UK, that man would have been arrested. So if you want to support the Wake Up America show, drop some Rumble rants today. We've got $100 to hit the great, the mini documentary. And because we love you so much, we've upgraded our mini documentaries for you today with new graphics and a new style. So if you guys want to see what we've got cooking up for you, then check it out by dropping Rumble rants or heading to forlibertyshop.com. Make a purchase during the live show, and if we hit $100 raised, you'll get to see our new and improved, upgraded 5-minute mini documentary instead of commercials. What do you say? And if you don't want to give us money, that's fine. Just click the like button and share it. It's totally free. I get it. Okay, so let's talk about what happened in England. This was a petty pickup line dispute at a Cowley Hill primary school is where this happened. There, private parents were faced to deal with the police at their door because somebody gave a random report to the police through WhatsApp. 6 uniformed law enforcement officers marched directly into the living room of Maxie Allen and his wife, Rosalind Levine, to arrest both the parents in front of their screaming 3-year-old daughter. The crime that they were accused of was a single complaint sent via email where the frustrated mother had labeled a senior school administrator a, quote, control freak. Now, the police seized the parents, confined them in custody cells for hours, and then spent 5 weeks investigating before admitting that the legal arrest threshold was never met, and they had to surrender a 20,000 pound settlement. Okay, fine, makes sense. $20,000, still taxpayer dollars. But this, of course, reveals a broad systemic design, because on Monday morning in London, the Keir Starmer Labour government codified this by announcing a mandatory state checkpoint between every citizen and the open internet. So under this new scheme administered by bureaucrats in London, social platforms are going to face ruinous fines if they don't ban children under the age of 16 from accessing social media. So tech managers directing Snapchat, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X must implement age gates, which require digital identity verification systems for every adult constituent, right? So in order to access them at all, you have to prove that you're an adult. So that means that it's not like they're checking the IDs of kids, it's the adults that have to pay the burden here. So essentially they also have these enforced overnight curfews, algorithmic blocks, scrolling limitations. All right, so over family affairs, and then of course everybody has to surrender their rights. Now, WhatsApp and Signal, they've had carve-outs temporarily. So now adolescent life is going to move into these encrypted apps, of course, while parental oversight dissolves. So now it's going to be even harder for adults to monitor their teens, because the teens, of course, are going to move into all these encrypted apps. All right, so teen smartphone addiction kind of operates like a slot machine, and it does cause a problem for many teenagers who are addicted to their phones. There are serious issues here, but that doesn't mean that we need to convert the power of parenting into the state. So the empire that exported individual rights to the West is now contracting a corporate manager to police the speech lanes of conversation, while, of course, the sovereignty of the people of the United Kingdom who built that country and pay the taxes there are the ones who have to pay the burdens of this one. There was body cam footage of a man being beaten by police in the back of a police van. There was another atrocity that was unfolding in Kent, where a 71-year-old retired special constable named Julian Fulks sat in an interrogation cell while 6 active officers physically rifled through his personal bookshelf looking for deviant thoughts. I kid you not. Fulks replied to a social media post who was criticizing an anti-Semitic pro-Palestinian rally, which, of course, summoned a police raiding party to confiscate all of his electronic devices and log copies of his Spectator magazine and printed essays by Douglas Murray as evidence of very Brexity reading material. Later that week, Irish comedy writer Graham Linehan stepped off an international flight at Heathrow Airport to find 5 armed police officers, 5, deployed at the terminal gates to arrest him for 3 posts on the platform X discussing gender labels. So Britain has now traded Monty Python contrarianism for an armed speech enforcement squad targeting traditional speech, while, of course, left-wing institutional insiders escape judicial powers entirely. Magistrates in the UK, they recently assigned 31 months in prison to citizen Lucy Connolly for an angry digital post that was transmitted during the Southport urban riots. And this was, of course, happening at the exact same time that total immunity was being extended to a leftist Labour councillor named Ricky Jones. How did Jones get off the hook? Well, Jones secured an absolute jury acquittal after he was recorded before a screaming street crowd executing a graphic throat-slitting gesture while demanding his right-wing opponents have their throats cut. Okay, so the entire working population recognizes this as this kind of an asymmetrical tyranny. It's an anarcho-tyranny, as I like to call it, where one specific cohort, for reading Douglas Murray and Spectator magazine, they will receive harsh punishment. But the favored leftists, they're going to receive charitable context. They're going to receive systemic leeway and, of course, dismissal of their charges. Now, the data file storage retaining these people have been saying is the non-crime hate incident registry. This is an offense machine that's capable of logging completely legal utterances, but they're all going to start getting saved by the Home Office. So in other words, the UK's government is going to start cataloging the speech of citizens in case they might need to use it against them later, even perfectly legal speech now. During the Cold War, Europeans, they exposed this psyop as Zersitzung, the strategic decomposition of intellectual freedom that's secured when ordinary men have to swallow their own laughter, have to conceal family grievances, and concede that independent expression requires an advance political permit. So essentially East Germany has made its way to the United Kingdom now. And if you are a left-winger with threats of violence, throat-slitting gestures, you'll get off the hook. If you're a right-winger reading Douglas Murray in The Spectator, your thoughts will be logged. You will have the United Kingdom police waiting for you at Heathrow Airport. Another country that I have to scratch off of my list to ever visit. China, Russia, and the United Kingdom are all off of my visitation list. Good morning, Joni. Good morning. Nice to see you guys. Thank you, Byron Norris, for the Rumble Ranch, brother. We appreciate you very much. Looks like Quest Fanning and Byron Norris are getting getting those donations started early and often, and we're grateful for that. If we hit our bonus content level, of course, then we will play the bonus content instead of commercials. And we've got two guests for you today on the Wake Up America show. We have got at 8 a.m. Central, Camellia Peterson to talk about the resistance to abolishing the income tax here in the state of Missouri. And then at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, we're going to talk to Tom Pappert about the end of the war in Iran. But is it the end? The neocons, of course, are absolutely livid that Donald Trump is making peace and trying to end the 100-day war. And of course, the libertarian Republicans like Senator Rand Paul are out there praising him. Thank you, Rand Paul. So we'll talk about that this morning at 8:30 a.m. Central with Tom Pappert. So if you just tuned in to the Wake Up America show, we're glad and grateful to have you here. Let's talk about beauty. Is beauty a right-wing concept? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. Aestheticism. It's the Wake Up America. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about whether or not beauty is a right-wing concept. This is the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Don't go away. Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them. Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at 4libertyshop.com.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.
Hark! I've discovered a brew so bold, 'twill ignite the spirit of liberty. This is not merely coffee, 'tis the very essence of American boldness. Give me coffee, or give me death. Go to For Liberty Shop to procure yours now.
When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a redcoat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors, and trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.
Deserve health equity.
Trans people deserve to see trans joy in the media.
Trans people deserve to exist peacefully.
Trans people deserve autonomy.
Trans people deserve to be loved and believed.
Trans kids deserve to be kids.
Trans people deserve to exist without dignity. Trans people deserve to grow old.
Trans people deserve strength.
Trans people deserve access to the sports they love, just like everybody else.
Trans people deserve a spot on the platform. Trans people deserve equity.
Trans people deserve celebration. Trans people deserve to know they are sacred.
Trans people deserve the world.
Trans people deserve everything.
This month, and especially today at White House Pride, my first time here, I want to be reminded of the joy that this community holds, of our resilience, of our power.
That is what the 250th anniversary would have looked like if Kamala Harris had been in charge. But on Sunday night on the South Lawn of the White House, an American that the entire sport of UFC had left for dead grabbed the baddest man on the planet and beat him into a puddle of blood and bone. Justin Gaethje, 37-year-old out of Safford, Arizona, walked into the octagon. He was a 6-1 underdog. And he fed to Ilia Topuria like a bucket of chum. He was fed to Ilia Topuria like a bucket of chum. Now, Topuria was a 2-division champion who had never lost a fight in his life. A man that the whole sport had already now anointed as the best pound for pound fighter breathing. And in the second round, it looked like the smart money was dead right. Now, Topuria went downstairs and started caving in Gaethje's ribs, had him hurt, chasing him all over the canvas, hunting for the finish. Everything that building said, go down, stay down. But instead, this old warhorse spit out his mouthpiece, dragged himself off the brink, and started beating the piss out of a man who had never once been beaten. By the fourth round, Tapuria's face was raw hamburger. It was a mess. There was bone sitting where no bone belongs on the right side of his skull, and he had an eye swollen shut. It was purple as a plum. The corner of a man who had never tasted defeat took one look at what was left of their fighter and hurled in the towel to stop the slaughter. Congratulations, Justin Gaethje. He spent his whole career almost getting there, and he finally strapped the undisputed lightweight championship of the world around his waist. And he did it standing in a smear of another man's blood on the grass behind the people's house. Every single fight in the card that night ended in a knockout. Not one of them went to the judges. Sean O'Malley put a man out and turned to salute the troops in the front row in a beautiful sight. Cyril Gane tore apart Alex Pereira for the interim heavyweight belt. They had 7 fights and 7 knockouts on the south lawn of the White House. They built this full octagon on the president's backyard under this steel structure that they nicknamed the Claw. The Marine band played the fighters to the cage. The Zac Brown band sang the national anthem. As you can see in the photo there, fighter jets roaring low over the National Mall. The octagon girls wearing stars and stripes, and the vendors sold Bud Light on the same lawn where Thomas Jefferson once greeted citizens off the street. You know the left hated that. Cut me, Mickey. More than 4,000 people had packed onto the White House lawn, and over 1,000 of them wore the uniform of the U.S. military. Tens of thousands more filled the ellipse in the streets around the monuments, and the whole thing went out on Paramount Plus without a pay-per-view fee. It was absolutely beautiful. UFC said it was picking up the production tab, so court filings put the event at well over $60 million and tens of thousands of hours of labor, most of it private money brought to the president's backyard for this national celebration. And that's what Sunday was. June 14th carried Flag Day, which is the 251st birthday of the U.S. Army, and the president's 80th birthday at the same time, all inside of the broader America 250 celebration. It was our destiny. A country that liked itself would call that a great night. Half of Washington, however, called this night a catastrophe, a tragedy. So a Democrat running for Senate in Michigan went on television while the fights were still going on and called this whole thing wildly tone deaf. She said it rings of let them eat cake. Another politician accused the president of a Marie Antoinette aristocracy because 4,000 regular Americans and 1,000 soldiers got to stand on a lawn and watch the fight without having to pay a pay-per-view bill. Variety magazine ran a headline declaring that Trump had reached peak idiocracy. To these people, of course, ordinary Americans enjoying a fight is evidence that civilization is collapsing into stupidity. Not the people standing on the White House lawn talking about transgenderism and other people's genitals. That's the height of civilization and taste. And of course, they call this setup hideous. Right? They stood in front of a federal judge. They called a cage match on a lawn a volcano of corruption that would mark an inflection point in American history. Our legacy will be shattered. I mean, these people have lived through wars and crashes, economic crashes, and real corruption. But the thing that finally broke these lefty boomers was a hook landed near a rose bush. The confession, of course, came from the government's own lawyers who described these two plaintiffs in open court as people who believe they have superior taste and, of course, want to spoil the event for everyone else. Superior taste. And that phrase is the entire story of the modern left. None of this contempt that they have for the common man is new. No, let's go back to March 4th, 1829. Andrew Jackson took his oath and opened the White House to the public way before Jefferson. The public, it was the same way that Jefferson had done before him. And Andrew Jackson welcomed people in, and the people came. More than 20,000 people came, farmers and tradesmen and veterans in work boots who had traveled hundreds of miles to lay eyes on the man that they elected, Andrew Jackson. One man climbed onto fine furniture for a better look, and mud went through every room in the White House. Dishes were broken. Furnishings in the White House took a beating. The crowd pressed so hard into the rooms that the staff had to haul tubs of spiked punch out onto the lawn just to coax people back outside from the White House. And at the time, the fine society of Washington was horrified. A senator at the time called this a Saturnalia. The newspapers in the early 1800s sneered about a stream of mud and filth working its way into the White House. And it was about, they called them a rabble who had no place, no business in such a place. But a woman named Margaret Bayard Smith stood in that same crowd and saw the opposite. She called Andrew Jackson the people's president, and she said the people would rule. So the same lefty sneering almost 200 years apart. Work boots on the furniture in 1829 and Bud Light on the lawn in 2026. Both of these concepts frighten the exact same people for the exact same reasons, right? Anyone who thinks a combat sport is too violent or too low for the White House has forgotten the man on Mount Rushmore who would have loved every second of Sunday night, Theodore Roosevelt. Now, Teddy Roosevelt, for those who don't know, Teddy Roosevelt lined the White House basement with wrestling mats. He trained judo 3 afternoons a week under a Japanese master named Yamashita. He boxed inside the building until a punch detached the retina in his left eye and blinded him on that side for the rest of his life. The government actually kept the injury quiet for years. Teddy grappled with his own Secretary of War and his Secretary of the Interior. I wish we still did this today. And at one state luncheon, when the mood went flat, Teddy Roosevelt threw the Swiss minister to the floor and demonstrated a judo hold on him in front of the guests. Way to go, Teddy. So combat sports in the White House are not some kind of alien invasion. The man who helped make them respectable in that building is now carved into the side of a mountain. In 1925, a Swiss architect who had renamed himself Le Corbusier stood in the most beautiful city on earth at the time and decided that it had to die. He looked at the heart of Paris, at the narrow stone streets and the crooked roof lines and the cafes spilling out onto the sidewalks. And where everyone else saw a civilization, this man saw a disease. He called those sidewalk cafes a fungus eating the pavements of the city, and he had a cure. He called it the Plan Voisin, and it was exactly as gentle as it sounds. Bulldoze the right bank, flatten a huge stretch of old Paris, including the ancient Marais, and replace 1,000 years of stone and memory with 18 identical concrete towers standing in a grid like teeth. He called a house a machine for living in. And when the bombs of the Second World War later leveled the cities of Germany, Le Corbusier looked at the photographs of the rubble and felt something close to envy. I kid you not, this is a true story. Because now there was room to build on ground that had been wiped clean. Paris told him no at the time, but his idea lived and it earned a name, brutalism, from the French for raw concrete. And it became the favorite style of every government on earth that wanted to manage human beings the same way that a warehouse manages inventory. It was cheap, it was identical, and it was poured fast and drawn up in a central office by men who were certain that they know better than you how to live. Joseph Stalin covered Moscow in this type of architecture. Albert Speer drew it for Hitler on a scale built to make one German standing beneath it feel like an insect under the boot of the state. The Soviets poured it across the whole Eastern Bloc, row after row of gray slabs standing guard over a dozen captive nations. Every line of it was designed to do one job. It was to shrink a man down to an ant and remind him that he was one interchangeable unit among millions. Historians of that period will tell you Stalinist public buildings were given a deliberately unfriendly face shaped on purpose to discourage any ordinary citizen from ever walking in. The building itself was the first guard at the door. And the same cold concrete even stands in our own capital. If you walk a few blocks from the White House, then you will run straight into the J. Edgar Hoover building. This is the headquarters of the FBI. This is a hulking gray-brown fortress of raw concrete that squats over Pennsylvania Avenue like it's daring you to come closer. Nobody who walks past that thing feels like the owner of anything. And that's the whole point of it. It is a building that is raised by a government that does not trust its own people. And it wants you to feel the same way about yourself. This is the feeling that the modern left wants you carrying every day of your life. They want you feeling small and quiet and grateful that the state lets you stand there at all. Le Corbusier never got to flatten Paris, but his spirit won the argument in 1,000 city halls and housing blocks and federal agencies. And for 100 years, this style has been trying to climb the fence at the White House. The men who built this country faced the exact same question, but they gave the exact opposite answer. When Thomas Jefferson sat down to design the first great public building of the new republic, the Virginia state capitol, he reached across 2,000 years and pulled a Roman temple out of the south of France. There's a temple in the town of Nîmes called the Maison Carrée, which is raised while Rome was still a republic of free men. Jefferson called it the most perfect and precious remain of antiquity in existence. He wrote that he would sit and gaze at it the way that a lover gazes at a mistress. He modeled the Virginia Capitol on that building on purpose because it had been raised by a people who were governing themselves. And Jefferson wanted every Virginia farmer who climbed those steps to feel that inheritance land in his chest. See, Jefferson believed that architecture was a teacher. He wrote to James Madison asking how a taste for this beautiful art could ever be formed in his countrymen unless the new nation seized every chance to put great public buildings in front of them as models, to study and to imitate. The buildings existed to raise the citizen up, to hand him the inheritance of Athens and Rome, and tell him that it belonged to him now. And the choice that the founders made was deliberate, down to the very last column. The American revolutionaries, they had just fought a war to break from a king, and they refused to house their new government in the heavy Georgian style of the British crown that they had just defeated. When George Washington and Jefferson turned to the federal capital, they wanted a building that spoke for a self-governing people, and Jefferson pushed for the form of the Roman Pantheon. The men that generation called the result was a temple of liberty. Jefferson even sketched a whole capital city with a long, open mall and a president's house a plain citizen could walk up to. And then he handed the plan off to be laid out on the banks of the Potomac. Now, understand what the left is up against when it tries to turn the White House into a cold and forbidding temple. The architecture of the White House will not help them because it is a warm, human, neoclassical house that's built to scale that a farmer could walk into without feeling like he needed to take off his hat. It was raised by men who meant for that farmer to feel like the owner of that house. So when the left cannot wring coldness out of stone, they manufacture it with this idea of solemn reverence. Right? So this is the world according to Aaron Sorkin, who is a director. You may have seen one of his most famous works, which was a newspaper journalist who gives a long speech about why America is not the greatest nation in the world. So Aaron Sorkin, the way that he envisions the White House is all swelling music, noble staffers walking through corridors, somehow too sacred for ordinary people and their ordinary appetites. So they took the people's house and they turned it into a cathedral and appointed themselves as the only priests who are allowed inside. You cannot enter this temple, right? Every healthy nation keeps a civil religion, a set of places and days that it holds sacred, and that's a good and natural thing. But watch what the left does with ours. They reach for the solemnity as a weapon. The sternness that the left has is the leash on our country, but they dress it up as a love for it. But what the people with superior tastes are really guarding, of course, is the distance. They want to keep us away from the people's house, the fence line between them and you, right? Because a house that stays cold and sacred and forbidding belongs to the priests. It belongs to the managers. But a house that's full of 4,000 cheering Americans and a Marine band and a champion getting his hand raised, that house belongs to everybody. An open gate to that house terrifies a priesthood that survives on keeping people out. When President Trump threw the lawn open, he was finishing what Jefferson started. He was handing the Temple of Liberty back to the people whose name is on the deed. The priesthood, watching that 250th anniversary and celebration, they felt the floor shifting under their feet. That's how that fight on the lawn became, in their own words, an inflection point in American history. And on that one point, they were right. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, my name is Austin Peterson, and I am hosting the Wake Up America show. We'd love to have you become a regular guest of the Wake Up America show. Click that like button, and then click the follow button, and come back and join us Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central. That's the Wake Up America show's schedule. If you want to support the Wake Up America show financially, you can do so by dropping Rumble Rants, where we are live. If you're watching us on some other platform and you're like, hey, yeah, I'd love to support the Wake Up America show, but I can't drop Rumble Rants because I'm not on Rumble. Well, you should be on Rumble, but you could support the Wake Up America show and help to unlock the bonus content this morning by heading over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. The shop has just been going insane in the last few days because hundreds of people have been buying the America 76 250 years shirt. Hundreds of people in the last few days have bought the America 76 250 years t-shirt. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com. Grab your own America 76 t-shirt during the live show, and that will help us to unlock the bonus content. If we raise $100 during the live show, then that unlocks our mini documentary on the show. I know you guys will love it. We've upgraded our bonus content today, so help to unlock it by dropping those Rumble Rants or making purchases at forlibertyshop.com. And let's carry on.
Trending online, fans from around the world are arriving in the U.S. for the World Cup, and they just can't seem to get enough of American culture.
Okay,
culture? I thought America doesn't have a culture. Of American culture? What is American culture? I was told by the left that America doesn't have a culture.
What we find mundane is getting a lot of laughs. From 7-Eleven big gulps to ranch dressing on French fries and Taco Bell cuisine. International visitors are going wild over their experience in America so far, and they're sharing their first-time journeys on social media, much to our delight.
Taco Bell cuisine. There it is.
Never heard those two words.
The Holy Land.
Right, exactly. One German fan named Freddie is going viral for his unfiltered reactions and as he explores Atlanta and beyond. He loved the stadium, the city's lush greenery, but he was intimidated by their public transit. He also hit up Taco Bell and Walmart, but his trip to Waffle House at 1 a.m. really put him on the viral map when he ranked it a 10 out of 10, declaring, "We will be coming back."
Oh.
And there it is.
I know. I think he got hash browns, so good job getting the hash browns.
The rite of passage.
Swedish fan Elsa is also going viral for her endearing reactions to American comfort food. Her first breakfast in America was hash browns with gravy and eggs. She also grabbed some Twinkies and combos. I haven't had combos in so long.
Combos?
From a convenience store, saying, "I feel like I'm in a movie." And ranch dressing apparently blew her mind. She declared in caps, "Europe, we need ranch ASAP."
What, Europe doesn't have ranch? Ranch dressing? How do you not have ranch? God. Now, Washington was working themselves into a panic over that UFC fight, something else was moving across the country. The World Cup came to America this month for the first time in a generation, and it brought millions of visitors from across every corner of Earth. Now, the breakout star of the whole tournament so far has not been any soccer player. It's a German fan going by the name of Freddie on the internet, driving across the United States and behind his team, and he's posting what he sees and what he's experiencing. He went to a Waffle House at 1 a.m, and he gave it a 10 out of 10. A Buc-ee's stop, that for him, it was like seeing a beautiful cathedral. A Walmart left him slack-jawed in the aisles, and after a few hotel workers saw him and his friends about to walk to a stadium in the rain, they drove them there for nothing. And he wrote 3 words that traveled around the planet: "I love Americans." Now, he began this trip with 11,000 followers, but within days, he had nearly 400,000 followers. Even the Secretary of Transportation was resharing this guy's post. And Freddie is just one man inside of a whole wave that's happening all over the internet right now. Visitors from everywhere are finding the diners and the open roads and the plain kindness of strangers, and they're falling in love with the exact things that we have been told to be ashamed of, that are a sign that how low class we Americans are. Now, a Senate candidate looked at her own country's celebration on the road to 250 years, and she sees Let Them Eat Cake. A national magazine looks at this, and they see idiocracy. And one post making the rounds reads like an obituary. I was seeing this yesterday. It mourned the loss of Venezuela and the coming loss of Cuba. And it writes off the American left itself even as populist trash with zero brain power. So this is a man who, he posted this tweet. He's trained himself to feel like his own country's birthday is a defeat. A man who grieves for Caracas and Havana while a German tourist chokes up over a plate of hash browns in Alabama, right? One of these two men is seeing America clearly, and it's not the one who was born here. The strangers crossing the ocean or go to Buc-ee's and they find a miracle. The insider stands in the middle of the miracle and calls it an embarrassment because seeing it would cost him the one thing that he owns, which is the feeling of being smarter and sadder and better than everybody around him. So on Sunday night, a 37-year-old American that nobody believed in peeled himself off a stool with his face in ruins, Justin Gaethje, and he took a world title on the lawn of a house that belongs to him. And a few hundred miles away, a stranger from the other side of the world looked around at all of this and said, I love Americans. So the people with superior taste, they can keep their cold cathedrals and their hushed hallways and their obituaries for the United States, because the rest of us, we're going to be out on the White House lawn with the doors open, drinking Bud Light as it always should have been. Well, you guys can have the Bud Light. I'm going to drink something a little more crafty. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad and thankful to have you here. It's already been a phenomenal show, and it's only going to get better. Camellia Peterson is going to join us here live in just about 5 minutes from now. I don't know if we've unlocked the bonus content just yet. We might have, but I don't think so. So that means that we're going to watch commercials instead of the bonus content. But if you want to see our mini documentaries that we produce every day for the show, all we've got to do is raise $100 either in Rumble Rants or in purchases made at forlibertyshop.com. Also, I want to remind you about our sponsor. You know, Elon Musk didn't wait around for California to get sane again. He looked at the taxes, the regulations, the political craziness of that state, and he moved his center of gravity to Texas. So that's what smart people do. They don't just complain about bad government. They create options before they're trapped, all right? And that's why I want you to visit my sponsor. Go to expatmoney.com/World War III and download the free report from Expat Money. So you might not be a billionaire. You might only be able to afford one share of SpaceX. But if you still have a family and a bank account and a future, then you have a right to think beyond one zip code. So Expat Money helps people understand international banking, property overseas, and how to build a backup plan before the world makes a backup plan for you. So go to expatmoney.com/World War III. Get the free report and start thinking like somebody who intends to stay free. When we come back, Camellia Peterson joins us to talk Missouri taxes, spending cuts, and 2 August ballot measures that could change the way the state is governed. The Freedom Caucus says the money is there if Jefferson City will stop wasting it. The left says tax cuts are going to break Missouri. Oh my God. It's the end of the world. Amendments 4 and 5 are now the fight in Missouri. Camellia Peterson's next. Don't go away. This is the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
Welcome back to the show. Missouri voters are heading into an August 4th primary with two big questions on the ballot. Amendment 5 would start phasing out the individual income tax based on revenue growth while allowing changes to sales and use taxes and requiring local tax rate cuts if local sales tax revenue goes up. And this supposedly wouldn't reduce school funding at all. We'll see. We'll talk about that. Amendment 4 would change the initiative petition process so that citizen-led constitutional amendments would have to pass statewide and in every congressional district. The Missouri Freedom Caucus is now using a radio clip about auditor-identified cuts to argue that the state can cut spending and cut taxes at the same time. Here to break down what's real, what's spin, and what the voters need to know is Camellia Peterson. You guys know her from her Tuesday and Thursday appearances every week on the Wake Up America show. Good morning, Camellia.
Good morning.
We were talking about this during the break, and I think it kind of bears repeating. You're like, well, I didn't expect people to so forcefully resist passing an abolishing of the income tax here in Missouri. And I was like, yeah, it's every good idea is always violently resisted. It's the stupid ideas that are flying through Congress all the time, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it does seem like the ideas that are the worst go through the quickest. And you know, kind of what the common theme with those ideas is you know, you're always you're helping someone, right? You have to think about the children. You have to think about, you know, all of the things you have to think about. Oh, how, you know, how does it sound good to bring business to Missouri? Well, let's give them all a ton of tax breaks. That'll do it, right? Never mind that it's shafting the state at the same time. But, and it doesn't work, right? I mean, there's many instances, but lots of not great ideas that go through a whole lot easier than the good ones.
Now, Camellia, the left is pouncing on the Missouri auditor's report, warning of a looming deficit here in the state of Missouri. So the Freedom Caucus, they're pointing to these to the auditor-identified cuts. They're saying Missouri can reduce spending and cut taxes at the same time. Is that a realistic argument or not?
Sure. I mean, yes, it is. Like, I think that, you know, this is a complex, you know, subject. Obviously, there's a lot of, you can really get into the weeds on it. But I think what it boils down to is Missouri in this last session, the legislature cut $4 billion out of the budget. I fully expect, I believe the governor has till sometime in July to do any line item vetoes on the budget. I fully expect him to do more line item vetoes he did last year. And I know that he's, you know, very aware of our fiscal situation. And, you know, people on like our anti-everything people on the right, along with the left, also pounced on, you know, the auditor's statement about, you know, the risk that we face, the danger that we're in if we don't really take great care to start cutting costs and things like that. And they're saying, you're going to do this and eliminate the income tax too? Like, that's a terrible idea. I mean, this is why Amendment 5 will never work. And the thing is like, this is the entire reason we need Amendment 5, because we are in a very financially unstable place because our tax code is so messed up. We have over 200 exemptions in our sales tax code. We've been giving handouts to, you know, individual companies left and right. You know, you can't give it all away to everybody. And really who suffers as a result of this is the working people. You know, those carve-outs in the sales tax code, they're not benefiting you and me. Like, they're benefiting the people who utilize services, you know, that cost a lot more than what you and I do on a routine daily basis. And so, you know, if we, so it's more important now than ever that we get, you know, our economy on stable footing. And that's what eliminating the income tax would do, because it's been proven over and over again. If you look at states that have zero or very low income tax, and they rely more heavily on sales tax or consumption tax, and you look at their budgets, you know, through the last, you know, say 20 years, the states who have weathered the storm with that line just like dipping slightly and going across are the states who have no income tax, very low income tax, and who rely more heavily on sales tax. When it's just sales tax is much more stable as a term in terms of income. And so, you know, if we hit like 2008, like we hit a financial crisis, like we will weather that storm much better if we are more reliant on sales taxes than if we are heavily reliant on income tax, as Missouri is now.
Now, Amendment 5 is the big tax measure, right? Supporters are saying It's going to put Missouri on the path to no individual income tax. It's going to make us more competitive with states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee. So you've made the argument for it, but the thing is that when people are looking at the general the spending going faster than the inlay, the outlays are faster than the inlays, people are going to be making a big case of that, right? So the state auditor is warning that Missouri is on track for serious budget troubles. So general revenue is going ahead general revenue spending is running ahead of ongoing revenue. So what's the best argument to counter that?
Sure. So I think the best argument to counter that, I mean, like total agreement, we need to do budget cuts, right? I mean, everybody who's been involved in this income tax process 100% agrees that we have to keep pursuing efficiencies in government and becoming more leaner and more efficient and cutting those costs. And it can be done. It has been being done.
Where can it be cut, Camellia? What are we going to cut? Teachers?
So no, actually, no. Specifically in Amendment 5, it protects school funding. So like we have addressed that issue. No worries there.
Damn.
But yeah, I think that's the big question. Be nice. That's the big question is like, because it's very easy to say, cut the budget, right? And then you start to pull something out and somebody's like, oh no, we need that, and you pull something else and somebody else is like, oh no, we have to have that. So, one of Missouri's big problems, and this kind of ties into the Amendment 4 that you mentioned, is that our entitlements have ballooned. And that makes our budget just much bigger than it would have normally been. Missouri passed Medicaid expansion several years ago, and the impact that had on our budget is it can't be understated. And so, when everybody says, oh, you can cut your way to zero, you can't, you literally can't. So we definitely can make cuts here and there and, be more efficient in things, but every single one of those is a challenge, so I don't think there's an easy answer on cuts, but I do know that they are making the cuts and continually looking for ways to make the cuts. But Amendment 4, we got Medicaid expansion because of the citizen initiative petition process that we have in Missouri, where you just have to you have enough money, you can get enough signatures, you can put something on the ballot, and you only have to have 50, plus 1% in order for it to pass. So that means that, when it comes to that process, we are ruled by our liberal cities in, Kansas City and St. Louis, Springfield, even more so now than ever. So that process of amending the Constitution needs to be much more difficult. Like, this is why we have $15 minimum wage. This is why we have Medicaid expansion. So many things that we have because of this process. And it's because, outside influences pour a ton of money. It's why we are the it's why we have no holds barred abortion in Missouri, is because of this initiative petition process. And they're trying to dial that back, this time around. But I just, Amendment 4 basically says you have to have a majority in every congressional district in Missouri so that the people in the rural areas and smaller communities, they have a voice in this process. So there are a lot of people, generally the people who don't like the income tax phase out also don't like the idea of making it harder to put things in the Constitution.
Camellia, I like the idea of making it harder to put things in the Constitution because the Missouri Constitution is a patchwork of thousands of sometimes conflicting rules and regulations. Paul Kurtman, our mutual friend, the way that he explained it to me, I think was probably the best, is that the Constitution is supposed to be the spirit of the law and the code is supposed to be the letter of the law. But we have confused these concepts, and now we're writing code into the Constitution, which means that we are essentially at the mercy of the populists of 10, 20, 30 years ago. Now, there is a provision we're allowed to, I believe it's every 10 years we're allowed to attempt to rewrite Missouri's Constitution, but we haven't done so yet.
Every 20, and the last vote for it came around because I remember I did a deep dive into this. I was going to everything I can get my hands on. And this is very like what Thomas Jefferson, this is Thomas Jefferson's idea, right? He felt like the people should, that you should update, the Constitution, not federally, but at the state level every 20 years. And I believe the last time Missouri voted to do it was in the 1940s. So I'm just after the war or just at the end of it. And it was, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a lot of work to completely, you know, start from scratch and rewrite the Constitution. And, you know, I love the idea of doing that now because it's got so much junk in it. We have bingo in it. We have like 40 pages of legalizing marijuana in it, like that's so cronyistic, and now you can't undo it. Like it's a Herculean effort to do that. So it is, you know, we'll see. We're probably, if I'm thinking right, we're about 15 years away from having that vote come up again. So we'll see. I think it takes it's hard to say how well it would go because you definitely have to have the right mix of people, because you have to have equal people on the left and the right in the process. And then you kind of, like, it worked last time because there was one person that both sides respected as being fair and objective. And sometimes it feels like that. Can you find that kind of person that both sides would respect now? I don't know.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm speaking to Camellia Peterson here on the show today. We're talking about Amendment 4, which would limit initiative petitions, and Amendment 5, which would abolish our income tax. If you have a question for Camellia, you can drop them in the chat over on Rumble. Or you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. The text lines are open. I am monitoring them right now, and we'd love to hear from you. Camellia, this morning I've been talking a little bit about the idea of beauty being a right-wing concept, and I want to get to that. But before I do, I want to ask you your opinion on the UFC fighter who called Michelle Obama a man at the UFC fight the other day. And the reason I want to ask you about that is because I think you're not going to like my opinion on it.
Well, shocking.
And because I think it's a good topic, because when my wife asks me a question about a topic in the news, and she's kind of like a normie and she doesn't pay attention as much. So when things actually make it into her feeds, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good topic because this is what normies care about. Not they don't care about brutalist architecture as much. So Michelle Obama, Michelle Obama is a man joke at the UFC. Your thoughts?
Well, let me tell you this. I had never heard this conspiracy theory until a few years ago when I was sitting at a table surrounded by ladies all over the age of 65. And they started talking about this and Michael, and I was like, what are you talking about? And it's just like, it was the wildest thing ever, to learn from all of these older ladies that there are people who think that Michelle Obama is a man and that her name is really Michael. And, what in the world?
Okay, that does. So you've just
I don't think I can buy into it. Okay.
Nobody's asking you to buy into it. What we're asking is, what did you think of the joke?
Oh, well, I mean, I did not hear it. So was it said publicly, from the ring?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's probably pretty tasteless if you ask me. I mean, it certainly would not be. It would not be my approach to something. I do understand in the height of a situation like that where, things just spout out and you say whatever comes across your mind, but probably not the most tasteful thing ever.
Are you ready for my opinion on it?
No, boy, I can only guess.
The first reaction that I had, because I've heard all the conspiracy theories and seen the memes for years, and people posting pictures of some kind of odd bulges in her, pantsuits and things. And then now there are photographs of her from the back where she looks jacked, and it's kind of like it would. If you saw her from the back, you could understand why somebody might mistake her for a man, just saying. But at first I had the same reaction as you. I was like, oh, it's tasteless. And I always I kind of hate conspiracy theories anyway. So I was like, oh, it's this. But then I thought about it and I saw how the left was reacting to it, how angry they were about it. And then I remember Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck and blood spurting out in front of the audience, and how the left made fun of that, and how people are showing up in Charlie Kirk costumes at these events. And then I started to have God hardened my heart against it. And I started to realize and remember that Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, what is the rule for radicals when it comes to making fun of people? There's like a, how does he put it? It's ridicule. Ridicule is a man's most potent weapon. There's no defense. It's almost impossible to counteract ridicule. It infuriates the opposition, who then react to your advantage. So Trump was also almost assassinated twice. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. The left is trying to murder us. A harmless joke about, Michelle Obama being a man. I actually think it's that the left got off pretty light. I actually think, Camellia, that we aren't bullying the left enough. I actually think that we aren't taking advantage of the fact that most of them are mentally ill. And I also think that in order for us to get our freedoms back, Camellia, we're going to have to do things that make women uncomfortable. Because the thing is that the societies that don't listen to women are currently overtaking the societies that do listen to women. And you're shaking, you're nodding your head. You agree?
No, I'm like, no.
No.
Here we go.
Yeah. Here we go. Because there's this kind of cold gray Stalinist feminism that takes offense at everything, and we've been living under the yoke of this political correctness, HR, Karen lady tyranny for so long, because men aren't allowed to say these kinds of jokes anymore. We're not even allowed to say those kinds of jokes in the locker room anymore. So now it's starting to, people are feeling freer, and it's starting to spill out into society. And I think it's actually kind of a necessary pushback. As a matter of fact, I don't think we're being mean enough to the left. Agree, disagree?
I mean, you've known me long enough, you know this, like my struggle in all of this is that obviously this is like Newton's third law of politics, right? Equal and opposite reaction. And my trouble with all of this always is, do you just keep swinging from one extreme end of the pendulum to the other all the time? Because that's exhausting, first of all. And second of all, at what point do you not get down in the mud to wrestle with the pigs? You know what I'm saying? Like, where do you draw the line to say, okay, we're gonna, you could go through this endless cycle and over again, and maybe to a certain extent that we have, but I think there are certainly periods where, you have to have a period where this levels out. We can't constantly be at each other's throats all of the time. So, maybe there is this sort of equalizing period. I don't know. I guess I think of, and maybe this is just rose-tinted glasses looking back at the Reagan administration, but I guess that's what I think of.
Those days are over, Camellia.
Well, I know, but that does not mean they can't come back.
They're not coming back. We're not coming back from this. Charlie Kirk is dead. His children will be raised without a father. I think we've actually blown a once-in-a-generation opportunity to crush the left totally because of the conspiracy theories, because of the conspiratardism, how Tucker and Candace and many of these people have descended into madness. They've taken away the heat from the left where it should have been. We should have been kicking the doors down of some of these Antifa people, busting up their left-wing networks. I mean, thank God we got USAID broken up so that we could, and you see these Marxists in these South American countries are losing their elections now that USAID money is no longer flowing to their Marxist friends in some of these South American countries. We need to do that here in the United States, but we're fumbling that opportunity because, Camellia, people like you are telling us to be nice and go back to the Reagan years, and this is not the time for Ronald Reagan. We don't need a new Ronald Reagan. We need a Donald Trump evolution in order to fight the left. He is the only person in all of his vulgarities who has been able to beat the left, not only politically, but culturally. Camellia, agree, disagree, something else?
I do agree. When you talk about culturally, when you were talking about Bud Light, on the White House lawn, and I was thinking, the right took Bud Light back, right? Because they had to spank them first because they were ridiculous. And so that was that, and that is capitalism and the free market at work. But I think there probably is an argument to be made that, your leadership at the top also can set the tone for the country. And if you feel emboldened to push back, Do I think that without that, people would have pushed back without Trump? Yeah, I think so. I have a lot of faith in, the remnant of the American people who have the spirit of the founding fathers in their hearts, like you and me and so many of your listeners.
I couldn't do it, Camellia. I lost 2016, 2018.
Sure.
Voters rejected what I had to offer at the ballot box, Camellia. They wanted someone that they felt could win a victory. I have to admit in front of you, God, and everyone watching the stream right now, that Donald Trump did things that I could not do, that I was incapable of, and saw things that I was unaware of. He was aware of threats and capable of destroying the left, and he did it with the vulgarity that was necessary because he was willing to use ridicule as a potent weapon. There's no defense. All right, Camellia, give the last word and say, tell everybody to be nice like Ronald Reagan, and we can go.
No, I do. I do think that there is a time and a place for disruptors. And I do think that it takes all kinds, right, to make all of this work, because we've talked before, you need the warlords, right? And you also need the diplomats, right? You need that balance. And I think for so long, that was what was wrong with this country, is there was a huge imbalance. And and from the left, and all of these things that were supposed to be like more freedom, like ended up being oppression and restricting free speech. And so many of these other things that were restricting individual rights. And so I do think that like this pushback against that has been wholly necessary. And I hope out of this that, people who are on the left will see the violence and the rhetoric and the behavior and not want, I hope that they'll not want anything to do with that, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But yes,
you can hope in one hand and you can poop in the other and see which one gets filled up first, Camellia. You have far too much. I don't get why you have this kind of faith in humanity on one side for people's kindness,
eternal
and
optimism.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah,
well, how can you have that and then also recognize that how stupid democracy is and we need to limit the initiative petition process? How can you hold those two incongruent thoughts at once,
I
Camellia?
know. How can you hold those conflicting ideas, right? I have told people many times that you work in politics and it will simultaneously, sometimes even in the same day and moment, destroy your faith in people and restore your faith in people all at the same time, because individual differences, and there are a lot, there's good out there. And when you talk about beauty, okay, if we're going to talk about beauty, you have to look for the good and the beautiful in people in America, because that is what will make
Camellia,
us great.
You're it. You're the last good and beautiful thing there is on this earth, other than my wife, Stephanie. God bless you both. You're both the sweetest people I know, and you're the only nice people I know. But Camellia, I think you might be a little too nice. And Steffi's a little too nice too sometimes. All right. Have a good day, Camellia. And we'll follow you over on X at Rare Camellia. And I hope you have a wonderful day. That is Camellia Peterson, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up. Give it up. All right. What a great show today so far. Click the like button if you haven't already. We'd love to have you be a regular guest of the Wake Up America show. Click the follow button. If today's the first time you've ever watched the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. Click the follow button. Come back and join us 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Rumble.com/AP4Liberty. Looks like people really love not only are people going to the grift shop and buying the America 76 250 years t-shirt. They love this G.I. Joe kind of themed America 76 t-shirt. But check this out. So the America 76 250 years t-shirt is a hot seller. We've sold hundreds of these things in the last few days. We finally cracked the code of advertising on social media. So we're actually starting to... We've had the last 3 days have been the highest sales days in For Liberty shop history. So get with the groove, get with the times, get your America 76 250 years t-shirt. And I actually have a confession to make, because the first time that I saw Stephanie, this shirt design that Stephanie made, I have to say I didn't believe in it. But this is why I trust my wife sometimes. I just let her do what she does, because I'm not a girl and I don't know what girls like necessarily, right? Other than what girls like about a man. But what girls like for girls, that I'm a little bit clueless. So she made this design and I was kind of I don't know if anybody's going to want that. Apparently people really do want it. Get in, loser. We're crossing the Delaware. So somebody just went into the Grift shop right now and bought 2 of the America 76 250 year shirt. And then they bought the Get in, loser. We're crossing the Delaware shirt too. So I guess people do like Stephanie's designs. I'm not saying I don't have trust in her. I let her do it, make the designs. I don't know. I let her try. And you know what? She succeeds. She does. People love it. I mean, it wouldn't be what I would wear per se. I mean, you can see what I'm wearing. I've got the 250th polo, which is another big seller in the Grift shop. It's this beautiful embroidered polo. And this one has been a huge hit as well over at the Grift shop. So if you go to forlibertyshop.com, we've got a couple of polos people love. The 250th anniversary embroidered American flag polo. Look at Byron Norris there. Look at that sexy dude. Sexy son of a bitch. We got 4 5-star reviews of this one, so people obviously really love it. And the Liberty 250 embroidered polo shirt is another big winner. People love that one as well. So if you want to get one of our polos, head over to forlibertyshop.com. Check out the 250th embroidered American flag polo and the Liberty 250 embroidered polo. Throw those all in your cart, as well as a box of Founding Flavors coffee while you're there, and unlock the bonus content so we can watch the mini documentary instead of commercials. But because we haven't unlocked the mini documentary yet, we're going to have commercials. Another crummy commercial. Drink your Ovaltine. Coming up, Tom Papper joins us to break down the new U.S.-Iran deal. Trump is calling it peace. The markets are saying, thank God. The war party is already calling it appeasement. So what did America actually get? What did Iran give up? And why are people on the right so nervous? Tom Pappard on that next. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Don't go away. Go shopping.
Hark! I've discovered a brew so bold, 'twill ignite the spirit of liberty. This is not merely coffee, 'tis the very essence of American boldness. Give me coffee, or give me death. Go to 4 Liberty Shop to procure yours now.
Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from 4 Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at 4libertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again. George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at 4libertyshop.com.
actually, I'll not only release it, I'll probably have a press conference and read it to you word by word so that the press covers it accurately. Because it's a very important document. And unlike Obama, who could have destroyed the Middle East with a horrible JCPOA, it is the worst agreement. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. Mine is a wall against a nuclear weapon. I mean, I see these people say, but we already had one. That was the words. He paid a fortune for it. We paid nothing.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Welcome back. Trump says the U.S. and Iran have worked out a deal to end the war, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and move into a 60-day window for a larger agreement on Iran's nuclear program and sanctions. Oil prices dropped, markets jumped. Global leaders are breathing into paper bags excitedly, and many on the right don't seem like they're happy about this. Joining us now to discuss from the Tennessee Star is Tom Papper. Welcome back, Tom. Good to see you again.
Great to be back, Austin. And we were saying it. Nobody believed us, I don't think, on the libertarian side, on the Spurg right side. But we've been saying this war was going to end, and it was probably going to end with us all getting some cheap gasoline. And it looks like that's where we're going.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was, at the beginning, I was really nervous about that. I didn't want a war with Iran. Gas prices are going up. People, my libertarian friends are like screaming at me online. I've lost more friends in the last 100 days than I had over my entire lifetime, Tom. And I have to say that I didn't panic. I summoned my martial arts master energy, and I breathed and I meditated, and I said, "Thou shalt not become a panican." And it turns out I was right, and you were right. Congratulations, Tom.
Oh, and congratulations to you. Congratulations to the majority of your audience. I know that like 8 out of 10 of them are reasonable, normal people. And then the rest of them are libertarians that we will get rehab. We're going to get you through this. Consider us your sponsors.
Tom, let's start with a basic read. When you saw this Iran deal announced, did your first instinct, say Trump pulled it off? Or, did you say maybe you want to see the paper before you take a victory lap?
No, I think it's kind of a ridiculous thing that those of us who spend all day on Twitter think that entitles us to read these memorandums of understanding between foreign states signed in Switzerland. I mean, it seems a bit ridiculous that we should have that opportunity before it is even signed or within hours of it being signed. No, I actually thought there's no way he's going to be able to get it done with the flourish that he was trying, where of course we saw it all go down over the weekend, where the news sort of emerged on Friday afternoon. On Saturday, it looked like it was a sure thing. And then it was announced that it would be signed before the UFC on Sunday, Trump's birthday, Flag Day, and before he would go to Switzerland for G7. So, I mean, it almost seemed too good to be true that it would all be taken care of and we would all just be able to sit and enjoy watching grown men fight each other and beat each other's brains in without having to think about a war 1,000 miles away. And the man pulled it off. He should be commended for this.
Mm-hmm. The president is selling this as peace through strength. Hit Iran hard, force them to the table, reopen the strait, get out of the war. Is that a fair read, or is this just the campaign version of a deal that might actually be messier? Are you prepared for the possibility that this might be something that we hadn't anticipated?
Well, I'm prepared for the possibility, in fact, the inevitability that people are going to say it's a bad deal. There are very strong, and some of these people I like, but a lot of the pro-Zionist side, the Zionist Israelis, they're going to say this deal is bad because it doesn't give them everything they want. A lot of the Iranian diaspora are going to say this deal is bad because it doesn't give them everything they want. But we need a deal that is going to be the best for the United States of America and that everybody else can live with. And that is what I fully expect to see. The reports are there will be no exchange of money from the U.S. to Iran. The reports are, by and large, that this is the final and best opportunity for Iran to reintegrate itself into the community of nations. And if Trump is successful through this agreement at making sure that this doesn't happen again in 20 or 30 or 47 more years, then I think it is well worth it. Now, I also think that there is a possibility, because these are not as history has proven, stable, reasonable, sane people. So there's always a possibility that whatever coalition of halfway reasonable people in Iran are toppled by the insane ones, and this all starts back up again in the next 60 days. I think Trump has been clear about that as well. But I'm very optimistic, and I think that if this can end in a way where America suffers an unfortunate and tragic but extremely historically low number of casualties, that is proof that it's peace through strength. We didn't have to invade. We didn't need boots on the ground. Everything that Bush and Obama did was proven wrong. This is a new model of American diplomacy, of American military might, and it's working by all accounts.
Now, there's this kind of strange coalition of people reacting to this. I mean, the markets love it. Some global leaders are praising it. Israel is freaking out over it, and the hawkish, right, the neocons are calling this a sellout. Why do you think that Israel is so upset? Why are the neocons so upset?
Well, I think a lot of folks, and I know the neocon right and their motivations, of course, much more than I do what happens in Israel because I've never been there. But it seems to me a lot of folks thought that this was finally the opportunity, that once you had the opening volley, the conflict began, 14 Americans tragically lost their lives. I think that a lot of the neocons, a lot of the warmongers thought that it would be easy to accelerate and easy to get to that 2 million man ground invasion that we've all been fearing would happen. And that was never going to happen if Trump got his way. Now here we are. We've proven that Trump always had a vision for this conflict of how to end it without having another Iraq, without having another Syria, without having another Libya. And here we are. So I think that's what a lot of this is upset is about. I think they anticipated that this would end in a Saddam Hussein style fashion. And I think that as time goes on, if Iran actually steps back from the brink of regime annihilation and becomes a responsible member of the world, then Israel and the neocons are not going to have anything to complain about, except the neocons, well, we may not get to sell as many weapons. They may complain about that.
Israeli officials are worried that this kind of lets Iran off the mat too early. It may be a once-in-a-generation opportunity for them to have actual regime change. But here's the way I was looking at this, Tom, is that if the Iranian people didn't take that opportunity in the last 100 days to to overthrow their government, to throw off the shackles of tyranny, I'm beginning to believe that they don't want it. I mean, my wife and I have been having this conversation lately about the concept of self-government and whether everyone is capable of it. So you have this kind of in the libertarian movement, there's this, the open borders crowd who believes that, that anybody could be able to come here and engage in self-government. And what I think that leads to is this importing the third world. You become the third world, that a nation is its people, and that the American people are capable of self-government. But it appears as if the Iranian people, despite the fact that they do have a somewhat liberal population in certain parts of the country, and despite what it was before the 1979 revolution, is that it doesn't seem as if the Iranian people are capable of self-government, Tom. And that's a very harsh thing to have to say. And I'm sure that many of my listeners who maybe became fans of me because of, some of the things that I've encouraged the Iranian people on are probably disappointed to hear me say that. But Tom, I understand that these people, they don't have guns, they don't have weapons. But at some point, if you can't look at an opportunity like this and say, maybe we should use our fingernails and rocks and fight, then maybe Trump looked at those people and said, if they're not going to fight for it, why should we?
Well, there is certainly an argument to that effect. I would remind everybody that in the opening moments of the conflict, Trump and Netanyahu both urged the Iranians not to go out and take the fight to their government. And I think the concern was probably justifiably that the Iranian government would turn them into human shields, as we saw to a lesser degree throughout. But look, I think one of the big things that nobody thinks about with Iran is everybody imagines, I guess, because we've had so little contact, that it's a little bit like, Persia from 300, I guess, where it's all a genetically or a population that is not extremely diverse. It is fairly monocultural. They are able able to get things done in a timely fashion, but that is just not the case. Iran is an extremely diverse country where the ruling class is a minority. And so I think you've had that where they rule, you have essentially this Muslim faction that rules by might, by the sword. And then you have additionally had, since the 1970s, an enormous brain drain where any Iranian that could possibly get out of that country seems to have done so. They went to Canada, they went to America, they went to Europe. I know there's a lot of them in the UK specifically. So I think that there are a myriad of different factors that make it simply unlikely you're going to see any sort of uprising. But there is still silver linings, because if you notice, President Trump and Netanyahu and their wonderful military, like, who is even in charge of Iran this week? Is it the guy who's in the coma where they brought him out on the piece of cardboard? I think that is seriously actually the guy in charge. That's the Ayatollah. But the person who signed this agreement was the prime minister of the Iranian parliament. So I think that there are, and Trump and I think Vance have said this, different factions within Iran, and there is a potential for a more moderate and deal-making faction to emerge on top as a result of this.
Now, the Israeli security concerns on this one. Israel's freaking out over this deal, and the retard right who has been accusing Donald Trump of being controlled by Israel now have to try and come up with another scheme or a scam to blame Israel for this. But the problem, of course, that we're faced with, Tom, is that the Panicans and the retard right have been doing everything they can to obstruct the president's agenda, and thankfully unsuccessfully so. But now we kind of have to look at a situation where they're going to be looking at the next grift. So what's the next grift? I mean, now that Israel's angry and pissed off, and we've seen Trump clearly chastising Netanyahu and telling them what to do, like, how are they going to blame the next set of challenges on Israel in your mind, Tom?
Well, I think you're going to be looking at a lot. This is actually great. We're coming up at the end of the retard rights arc. That's what this really is, because you're right. They're running out of room. They're running out of things to say. They're not going to be able to hopefully talk about the Iran war much longer. Soon the midterms will be over. We've seen all of the retard right candidates lose one after the other, just falling like dominoes. There's one more in Florida that's got to lose in a couple weeks, and then they will have lost all their candidates. So what is left to a political movement that thinks it's in a sense it's actually going nowhere? What's left to them at that point? Well, Austin, it's a presidential contest. So from about, I don't know, October of this year until midway through 2028, the retard right is going to be exclusively attempting to undermine, and they're not going to keep it to one, both J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. They're going to continue trying to undermine the Trump administration. You're going to hear the name Miriam Adelson more times than you can count. It's going to be like nails on a chalkboard. No offense to Miriam. That's the way these people use her name. And so that will be the big thing. They've got the guy who left Border Patrol. I think he's going to run. People want Tucker Carlson to run for president. That will be the next major grift, and it will be lucrative. Keep in mind, the people at the top of this are going to, in my opinion, in all likelihood, make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars grifting off this retard right 5% of the Republican Party that lacks the good attention span and goodwill to know when they're being conned.
Yeah, Tom, it's a shame that there's so many millions of people who watch these shows, but the truth is that most of them are in Pakistan. I saw Sneeko the other day had a leak where one of the people who was working for him leaked his analytics on a result, and it was the #1 group of people who are watching him were from Turkey and Pakistan and India, and that's where most of their viewers come from. So it gives this impression online that they have all this support that just doesn't exist here in the United States, because you certainly don't see it in the primaries. One other subject on this, speaking of the retard right, I've noticed that Senator Rand Paul, he recently got a compliment from President Trump the other day, and I've seen Senator Rand Paul making some positive noises in Trump's direction as well. Tom, are we going to be able to save Rand Paul from a similar fate as befell Thomas Massie?
Well, it certainly looks like Senator Paul is stepping back from the brink. And I think we even saw this a little bit before Massie lost, where Rand Paul was sort of hedging his bets. And now that it's clear there is no anti-Semitic libertarian moment. I mean, it's like, do you even want that, by the way? I want to have a libertarian moment in this country. That'd be great. Do you have to like pair it with hating the Jews? I don't get it. So I think that Rand Paul realized that was a bad idea. That was never going to happen. There's no actual appetite for it. And in fact, perhaps he was listening to Wake Up America and realized the best chance, the best opportunity to get libertarian ideas implemented into policy is right now. It's with a guy like Trump, who is, to a certain degree, ideologically neutral. If you bring him a good idea, he's not going to care if it came from the Austrian school or the Keynesian school of economics. He's going to care if it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled to see that Senator Rand Paul is turning it around, because it means that we'll be able to keep him in there. Thomas Massey is going to be the thing that I don't like the most about Thomas Massey losing all the political stuff is that now I'm going to have to compete with him on Rumble for podcasts.
Well, don't worry. I'm sure Pakistan is going to be backing him up. You'll have the American audience locked down.
I do, which is it's a much better audience. But no, it's just really sad for me personally, Tom, because I was such a huge Thomas Massey supporter for years. I do think that he changed in the last year, and I do think that the campaign really became about attacking some an ethnic subgroup here in the United States. And libertarians have really gone off a cliff in the last 10 years anyway, because they really got one-shotted by a lot of the conspiracy propaganda where you have this beautiful philosophy of free markets and limited government. We are the libertarians in the United States are the heirs of Adam Smith. I was listening to an hour-long podcast last night about the Wealth of Nations and all the discoveries that he made in publishing that book in 1776. He could have never even understood so many of the ways that his predictions would come true. And then there's Jeffersonian liberalism and the ideas of the founding fathers. And it just seems like libertarians in the United States have thrown away the heritage of liberty that was passed down from all of these great men and replaced it in order to feel powerful online. It's the way that I like to put it, I don't know if you're familiar with the story in the Bible of Jacob and Esau, but the story is that Esau was the favored son of, I think, Abraham, and then Esau trades his entire inheritance for a hearty bowl of stew. And so Isaac picks up on Esau's inheritance. And I feel as if libertarians have thrown away their inheritance for a bowl of stew. Would you agree with that analysis and assessment? And is there any way back to claw ourselves out of the depths of this conspiracism?
I think that's a perfect analogy. And I would say that, yes, there is a way to claw your way back, because fortunately this is not in the Bible. You can be an Indian giver here, Indians. You can, libertarians. You can say, never mind, we're taking our inheritance back. But I think, and the reason why I think that's possible is because we've seen this sort of, and I don't mean to denigrate you libertarians, but we've seen this sort of instinct play out multiple times over the years. When Bush was in office, they sort of said, see, we're kind of like the sane conservatives. You can come side with us, Republicans and Democrats who don't like Bush, but also don't like Kerry. Come side with us. Then when Obama's in office, they are saying, see, we're the Republicans that like weed and gay marriage. Come side with us. There's always this desire by the libertarians to not be their own thing, but instead sort of correspond with the issues of the day in order to try to grow politically. And I think that's why you've seen the Libertarian Party become such a disaster and such a mess and such a complete non-entity when it comes to competing politically. And I think that's why you've seen, again, the difference between Rand Paul, who will occasionally get a legislative accomplishment, and say a Justin Amash, we'll go further back in time, who became just enamored with President Trump, because I think he saw, especially in his state, a lot of opportunity there to expand his coalition by opposing opposing the Republican president. And how did that end for Justin Amash? Well, now he's kind of a footnote in the pages of history, and I'm afraid that's where Massey is going too. If the libertarians are going to pull this off again, they need to do what I would say Brandon Herrera, who is a little more libertarian than anybody has really begun to notice so far, what he's doing in Texas, where he's flying under the radar. He's agreeing with President Trump, and then he's saying, by the way, let's focus on the American people. Let's limit the spending. Let's incorporate that into MAGA.
Yeah, I think Brandon Herrera is like the sleeper cell right now for us, and definitely good example right there, Tom. We should talk about Brandon Herrera another time once he's gotten a little bit of legislative experience under his belt to kind of see if he'll be the one who will take us out of the wilderness. Maybe he'll restore our birthright to us. Tom Papert, you're a writer at the Tennessee Star. You're a great columnist. Every time you come on this show, people are like, I love Tom. So we have to constantly keep having you back. Tom, where can people follow you online and read your work?
People can find me on X, of course, at Real Tom Papert. And if you want to read my work, go to TennesseeStar.com. We are exposing what I think is going to be one of the huge corruption scandals of the year. It's in Metro Nashville government. They're giving millions of dollars to nonprofits that do nothing but like hire lawyers for illegal immigrants. And this is all happening under the taxpayers' nose with the taxpayers' dollars. So check it out at Real Tom Papert at TennesseeStar.com. And thank you, Austin, for having me on. It's always a genuine pleasure.
Thank you very much, Tom. Follow him over on X. Do it right now and tell him you saw him on the Wake Up America show. Tom, have a wonderful day. We appreciate you very much.
You do the same, Austin. Talk soon.
There we go. All right. What a great show today. Is beauty a right-wing concept? I certainly think so. I mean, just look at me. I love the Wake Up America show. I love the audience. You guys, looks like you've unlocked the bonus content, which means you get to watch that instead of commercials on the way out. Thank you for all you do for us. I mean, you guys are so financially generous. I just can't thank you enough. People who go to the Grift Shop and make purchases, people who drop Rumble Rants, all of your financial contributions have helped us to expand here. We now have 2 employees in this little shoe closet where we're working. And if we have one more employee, we're going to bust out into the garage. They're going to say, hey, remember the For Liberty Network, legendary status. It started in Austin's garage and in the shoe closet. And because of people like St. Selma and Eric Wilson and Quest Fanning and Byron Norris and others, I'm sure one day we're going to have our own beautiful production studio, and it'll be all bought thanks to people like yourself. So as you exit through the Grift Shop, support the network that supports you and the American people and the concept of individual liberty. We are reclaiming the birthright of liberty for American libertarians, whether they like it or not. I'm Austin Peterson. This is the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Bye, guys.
In the rolling hills of Hanover County, Virginia, on August 14, 1734, a boy was born who would grow into one of the most aggressive and feared partisan leaders of the American Revolution. His name was Thomas Sumter. As a young man, Sumter moved south to the backcountry of South Carolina, where he worked as a farmer, trader, and Indian fighter. He served in the French and Indian War, gaining valuable experience in the brutal, no-quarter style of frontier warfare. By the time the Revolution began, he had become a prosperous planter with a strong independent streak and a reputation for being both brave and hot-tempered. When the British captured Charleston in May 1780 and crushed the regular Continental Army in the South, most organized resistance collapsed. The British and their loyalist allies swept through the Carolinas, burning homes and punishing anyone who supported the Patriot cause. Many men surrendered or swore loyalty to the king. Thomas Sumter did neither. Instead, he gathered a small band of followers and took to the woods. He refused to accept British rule. From hidden camps in the swamps and pine forests, Sumter began striking back. His raids were fast, violent, and relentless. He attacked British outposts, supply convoys, and loyalist militia with a ferocity that quickly earned him a nickname from his enemies, the Gamecock. Sumter's men fought with a personal fury. Many of them had seen their homes burned and their families threatened by British and loyalist forces. Sumter channeled that anger into action. In August 1780, he led a daring raid on a British supply depot at Hanging Rock. His small force overwhelmed the Loyalist defenders in a sharp, bloody fight, capturing supplies and boosting Patriot morale across the region. His most famous clash came on November 20th, 1780, at Blackstock's farm. Banastre Tarleton, the ruthless British cavalry commander, pursued Sumter with a larger and better equipped force. Sumter chose his ground carefully along the Tiger River. When Tarleton attacked, Sumter's men fought from behind fences and buildings in a fierce close-quarters battle. Sumter himself was badly wounded in the shoulder and chest during the fighting. Though he was forced to retreat, his men inflicted heavy casualties on Tarleton's force and escaped with their wounded leader. The British claimed victory, but the battle showed that Sumter's partisans could stand and fight. Sumter continued his aggressive campaign throughout 1781. He raided British garrisons, destroyed supply lines, and kept constant pressure on the enemy in the South Carolina backcountry. His style of warfare was brutal and direct. He rarely showed mercy to Loyalists who had taken up arms against their neighbors. While other partisan leaders like Francis Marion preferred hit-and-run tactics, Sumter often sought decisive confrontations, earning both admiration and criticism from fellow patriots. His independent nature sometimes caused tension with higher command. He frequently clashed with Nathaniel Greene over strategy and refused to fully submit to regular Army authority. But no one could deny his effectiveness. Sumter's constant attacks helped wear down British control in the interior of South Carolina and kept large numbers of enemy troops tied down. After the war, Thomas Sumter returned to South Carolina a hero. He served in the state legislature and later in the U.S. Congress and Senate. He lived an exceptionally long life, dying on June 1, 1832 at the age of 97, the last surviving general of the Continental Army. Thomas Sumter was never a polished gentleman soldier like Washington or Greene. He was a rough, hard-fighting backcountry leader who waged war with fire and vengeance. While some criticized his brutal methods, his relentless attacks helped keep the spirit of resistance alive in South Carolina during its darkest hours. He proved that even when regular armies were defeated and cities fell, determined men fighting in the swamps and forests could still make an empire bleed. From the bloody fight at Hanging Rock to the desperate stand at Blackstock's farm, Thomas Sumter, the Gamecock, fought with a fierce, unyielding spirit that helped turn the tide in the South. He didn't just resist the British, he made them pay for every mile they tried to control.